Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. You guys ever procrastinate so hard you end up doing an entirely different task? That's kind of what happened tonight. We sat down, we were going to build Sokka, and then instead of Sokka, you guys are getting this video. But Sokka's on the way, alright? Calm down, guys. This video is just going to be a topic that just makes me happy. It's one of the things that makes me most happy in Magic. When some commander comes out and breaks some random card you've never heard of, and then out of nowhere, it's one of the best cards in the deck. We're talking about that draft Chaff that out of nowhere becomes the best card in a commander deck. And again, it's just one of the things that makes me super happy. So buckle up, click on that whatnot link, claim your free $15, get 10% off all of your Tolarian Library proxies, and then let's get into these weird cards. I'm now sponsored with Baron of Dice. This means you guys can get 5% off whenever you guys use the code DT4D or click the link in the description down below. I'm a huge fan of the awesome art on their deck boxes and just the way they look in general, and you can pair up those awesome deck boxes with high quality playmats that match those deck boxes. Thank you, Baron of Dice, for sponsoring this channel. The first one involves Ashes of the Fallen. This is a 2 CMC artifact that says, as Ashes of the Fallen enters the battlefield, you get to choose a creature type. Each creature card in your graveyard has the chosen type in addition to its other types. So this is really broken with Disa, and there was a lot of talk of if this interaction even worked whenever she was spoiled. Yes, it does work, and it is absolutely broken. Disa is a 5 CMC Jund commander that says whenever a Lagorth permanent card is put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, put it onto the battlefield. Broken. So you choose Lagorth with your Ashes of the Fallen, and then now whenever you just entomb any single creature, you're going to instantly reanimate that creature. Absolutely busted. If you mill a creature, discard a creature, as long as that creature entered the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, you're going to instantly reanimate it. So it became one of the best cards in the deck. Leege of the Tangle. If you guys have been paying attention to the Bumi content, you already know what this one is. This is an 8 CMC creature, crazy, trample, and whenever Leege of the Tangle deals combat damage to a player, you may choose any number of target lands you control and put an awakening counter on each of them. Each of those lands becomes an 8/8 green elemental creature. As long as it has an awakening counter on it, they're still lands. This is amazing with Bumi, a 5 CMC Gruul commander that just came out in the Avatar set or is about to come out depending on when you watch this video. He has trample, earthbending 4, but the important part is whenever Bumi deals combat damage to a player, untap all lands you control after this phase. There's an additional combat phase. Only land creatures can attack during that phase. So Tangle of Leege was just one of those cards that was so awkward. You didn't want to reanimate all your lands then go into your next turn, and he's 8 CMC, so he just didn't see play in almost any decks. But then out of nowhere, he's a really solid thing to put in Bumi, because Bumi is going to allow you to get that additional combat step right away, and now your 8/8 lands can start taking out some players. Time Stream Navigator. You guys might know where I'm going with this. This is a 2 CMC creature human pirate that has Ascend, meaning if you have 10 permanents, you get the City's Blessing, and then you can pay for tap Time Stream Navigator, put it on the bottom of its owner's library, and take an extra turn after this one. Activate only if you have the City's Blessing. This was really broken with River Song. River Song is a 3 CMC commander, 1 generic, 1 blue, 1 red, and it says you draw cards from the bottom of your library rather than the top. So you take an extra turn with Time Seed Navigator, put it at the bottom of the library, and then you're instantly going to be able to draw it next turn. Now you do need a haste enabler here, but a haste enabler in red, that's going to be super simple. And then once you have your haste enabler, you can take infinite extra turns. You just need some sort of additional way to draw cards, because you can kind of lock yourself into additional extra turns if there's no meaningful way to progress the game state because you're not getting card advantage. But anyway, infinite extra turns. As long as we have a haste enabler, it's extremely broken. This next card I'm talking about actually has 2 different commanders currently. Gonti's Aetherheart, a 6 CMC legendary artifact that says whenever Gonti's Aetherheart or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get 2 energy, and then you can pay 8 energy to exile Gonti's Aetherheart and take an extra turn after this one. Now the first commander is Mishra Imminent One. Mishra Imminent One has a very unique ability. He's in Grixis colors, 5 CMC, and he says at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of target non-creature artifact you control, except its name is Mishra's War Form and is a 4/4 construct artifact creature in addition to its other types. It gains haste at the end of this turn, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, really good here, because what happens is since Gonti's Aether Heart doesn't have the name Gonti's Aether Heart anymore, you're not going to sacrifice it to the legend role. That means every single turn we're going to get a Gonti's Aether Heart, and we can keep sacrificing them to take extra turns, again netting us infinite extra turns as long as we're able to generate enough energy. And the thing is about having two Gonti Aether Hearts on the battlefield, it's really easy to get that energy because both of them have that ability that generate energy whenever an artifact enters the battlefield. And again, Gonti's Aether Heart entering the battlefield also generates energy, so you kind of just get there. The second one is Chaff, the Metal Bender. You guys knew this was going to be here. One generic, one red, one green, one white, non-token artifacts you control or lands in addition to their other types. And you can earthbend at the beginning of your end step, and whenever a land is earthbended, if it gets exiled or destroyed, it re-enters the battlefield. So you can see what happens here. We get Gonti's Aether Heart, we earthbend onto Gonti's Aether Heart, and then we go ahead and take an extra turn, and then the earthbending ability is going to bring it back onto the battlefield. Again, you're able to generate infinite extra turns. Again, you do have to find a way to get enough energy to do this, but in Chaff, I'm pretty sure the strategy is going to be a ton of zero drops, throw them onto the battlefield, trigger all your landfall, so it's not going to be hard to get enough of those artifacts on the battlefield to get the energy to take infinite extra turns. And hey, even if it's not infinite extra turns, a lot is still okay, right? Now, this is one of my favorite interactions, and nobody's going to agree with me, but I'm going to share it anyway because it makes me happy. We're going to talk about Paco and Haldan, one of my all-time favorite commanders, but they don't see much play anymore because they're just disgusting. Paco's a 5 CMC legendary creature elemental hound. He has partner with Haldan and haste. Whenever Paco Arcane Retriever attacks, exile the top card of each player's library and put a fetch counter on each of them. Put a 1/1 counter on Paco for each non-creature exiled this way. 9 times out of 10, you're getting 3 counters put on him this way. He gets massive quickly. And then Haldan basically allows you to cast those spells from exile. So what card are we going to talk about here? Yep, Possibility Storm. This is a 5 CMC enchantment that says you will lose all your friends if you cast it. Kind of, right? It says whenever a player casts a spell from his or her hand, that player exiles it, then exiles cards from the top of their library until you exile a card that shares a card type. So it's essentially Chaos Warp, but on cast. Pretty funny, right? And the card you try to cast, you just get to throw it onto the bottom of your library. So now, effectively, you are the only one able to cast spells because we can cast spells not from our hand without any impunity. So now all of those cards with fetch counters on them just aren't hit by Possibility Storm, and our opponents are just having a problem playing the game. Now, can you cast just all of your elves trying to hit your 8 drops? Yes, that's possible, but again, you're going to be able to utilize this card a lot better than your opponents. Narset's Reversal. This card's really cool whenever you get off what you're trying to do, but the problem with this card is 9 times out of 10 it's sitting in your hand and it's not going to do much, but Azula absolutely breaks this card. Let's read Narset's Reversal first. 2 CMC, copy target instant sorcery spell, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new targets for the copy. And then Azula just copies every single spell during your combat step as long as she's attacking. Absolutely insane. So what this means is, as long as we cast Narset's Reversal after any instant spell, we're just going to copy it with Narset's Reversal, and then Narset's Reversal, since it's copied itself, can return itself back to its hand. There is a ton of different ways to break this. Anything that untaps your lands, getting 2 copies of that, 9 times out of 10 will just go infinite. You have Frantic Search, you have Snap. Again, a lot of applications here whenever we're talking about Narset's Reversal and returning instant and sorceries back to our hand, because remember, Azula is also copying that instant as well. So you always get 2 copies of the instant you're casting, and Narset's Reversal always returns it back to your hand. That's just a crazy combination that Narset's Reversal doesn't do regularly. And last but not least, I'm cheating on this one a little bit. Ulamog the Defiler is not really Draft Shaft, but this interaction makes me happy, so we are going to talk about it. This is a 10 CMC legendary creature Eldrazi. When you cast this spell, target opponent exiles half their library rounded up. It has wards, sacrifice 2 permanents, and Ulamog the Defiler enters the battlefield with a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile, and then Ulamog has Annihilator X, where X is the number of 1/1 counters on it. Kind of crazy. You have to cast him to get the, upside, but what if we didn't have to cast him? What if we used Mimoplasm instead? This is a 3 CMC creature, but it has an X in its casting cost. It's in Sultai colors, and he says, as Mimoplasm enters, exile up to X creature cards from your graveyard. It enters with an additional 3 counters on it for each creature card exiled this way, and then you can pay 2 to have the Mimoplasm become a copy of target card exiled with it, except it's a 0/0 and has this ability. This means as long as we exile like 3 cards with the Mimoplasm, one of them being Ulamog, we have a 9/9 Ulamog with Annihilator 9. And I just think that's super funny, and that is not at all how the card is meant to be played, so it kind of makes me happy, if that makes sense. You could also use the other Mimoplasm. It kind of does something very similar, and you're going to get the same effect. This card's just absolutely broken in any of the Mimoplasms, so I just had to point it out. I think it's super funny. Alright, call to action, because YouTube video. Guys, leave in the comment section down below the draft Chaff that absolutely breaks Commander, and maybe you'll see it in the next video. Maybe we make this a series. I don't know. This stuff makes me happy. Let me know if it makes you happy in the comments down below, and we can kind of do more videos like that. But with that being said, you guys have a great day. It's 12 o'clock. I'm probably going to hit the hay, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.